Welcome back to the Sports News Analysis YouTube channel, your home for NFL talk here on YouTube. My name is Mike. The term salary cap casualty is one that you're going to hear a lot in the coming weeks as teams try to clear space for the free agents and their eventual draft picks here in the offseason. And some big names on this list. I decided to focus on 10 big names and let you know my thoughts on if I think they'll become salary cap casualties. And to me, let's start with the sure things. Guys I think will definitely be casualties here in the next couple of weeks. We'll start off with Jets receiver Santonio Holmes. $8.25 million will be due to him if he's on the roster next year. This is a guy, okay, he was important when they made their playoff run in 2010. Anyone who's a Jets fan like myself, you can't really deny that. I know you don't really like the guy now, but he was important then. I was on board when they signed him to the contract back then. But in hindsight, just a terrible move by the Jets. This is a guy who's dogged it ever since then. He'll blame everything under the sun for why he hasn't played well. But the fact of the matter is, this is not a guy you want around anyone, really. And he may get a one-year deal for $3-4 million at the most from some team, but the Jets will cut Santonio Holmes, to me, the first chance they get. The next guy here, Chris Johnson from the Titans. Classic example of a team cutting a guy a year too late and how it can really hurt their team. Chris Johnson, look, is owed $8 million this year. That's putting him up with the top backs in the league. This is a guy who didn't even average 4 yards a carry last year. Again, not a guy with the best attitude in the world. Easy, no-brainer. Chris Johnson will be a salary cap casualty. To move to the defensive side of the ball, you have Julius Peppers of the Bears. Again, a guy who's, to me, a legit starter still in the NFL, can still put pressure on the quarterback in spurts, but $18 million to pay a guy like Julius Peppers, I mean, think of how outrageous that number is when you figure Greg Hardy will probably get between $11 and $12 million annually, and he had the best season of any defensive end last year. Julius Peppers, $18 million, no thanks. Look for the Bears to make him a salary cap casualty. As we go down the list, some other less than sure things, but guys I still think will get cut. You look at Will Smith at New Orleans. Will Smith, the defensive lineman, look, he was subpar in 2012, was hurt all 2013. He has almost a $14 million cap number, and he'll be, I think, an obvious salary cap casualty as the Saints are in a tough salary cap situation as a whole, and not to mention they need to free up money to hopefully re-sign Jimmy Graham long-term or at least be able to franchise him. So bringing back Will Smith makes no sense. Another guy on the defensive side of the ball, Lamarr Woodley, the linebacker for the Steelers, due $13.5 million against the cap this year. Again, he's not a guy. He's a guy that is a contributor, as an NFL-level starter. But when you're talking $13.5 million against the cap, you got to be talking about a real big difference maker. And especially as the Steelers' defense tries to get younger, I think they'll either move on for Lamarr Woodley or at the very most cut him and try to bring him back at a reduced contract. Some other names you're hearing attached to salary cap casualty type lists that I don't give much credence to. We'll take the two Cowboys first of all. There's one Cowboy I think will definitely get cut, and one I can't see at all. The one I can't see getting cut at all is Demarcus Ware. Look, Demarcus Ware is due $12.5 million the next 2 years. His production has not been where it's been as it was earlier in his career. But if you look, I think he was playing pretty well last year, the first half of the year, before the injuries set in. And this is a guy you got to remember. He's probably the best defensive player they've drafted, in the last 15, 20 years as an organization. They're not just going to move on from him. He's not willing to really take a salary cut, which, hey, look, I don't ever knock a guy who agreed to a contract with a team if he is not open to taking a salary cut, because the second a team can move on from a guy like that, they will. But Demarcus Ware, I don't think there's even a chance that he'll be cut. One guy on the Cowboys I think will be cut is Miles Austin. Again, maybe a case of holding on to a guy a year too much. You have Austin, who's due $9 million next year. He's no longer a $9 million receiver, certainly. You're talking $9 million. That puts him in the neighborhood with Andre Johnson and Deshaun Jackson. He's not that kind of difference maker anymore, unfortunately, because of his hamstring issues. Look for him to be a pretty easy decision as far as a cut goes. And my last guy I wanted to talk about today on this list is Sam Bradford. And I thought it was interesting that Sam Bradford hasn't been mentioned in these salary cap casualty conversations. I know the Rams came out early in the offseason and stood by Sam Bradford. Again, the Rams have the number 2 pick, much like they did the year that they traded the pick to the Redskins, which eventually became Robert Griffin III. You have the second year here, okay, in 3 years where the Rams have the number 2 pick, have a quarterback that personally I'm not sold on, that they're paying a boatload of money to, and they're going to pass up, again, an opportunity to draft another quarterback. I mean, you look at Bradford, the guaranteed base salary money in his contract is over. Okay, that went from 2010 to 2013. He's due $14 million in base salary this year and counts $17 million against the cap. He's a guy I would seriously consider moving on from if I was the Rams, but it seems like with some players, they get excuses for why they don't play well. With Bradford, it's been injuries and not having a good receiving core around him. And you get some quarterbacks that don't get the benefit of the doubt. But and again, this is not even the regime that drafted Sam Bradford. So again, I'm a little confused by that, but don't look for him to get cut. And just a last name here, I've been seeing it, thrown around a lot. A guy I don't think is going to get cut is Antonio Gates. Due $7.5 million, still a valuable security blanket for Phillip Rivers. Yes, he's probably not worth $7.5 million, but with the chemistry he has with the quarterback and with the overall success that offense had last year, I don't look for them to move on from, I'm sure, what Phillip Rivers would consider his most reliable target. So, guys, those are 10 salary cap casualty possibilities I see. Again, about half the list I look as being sure things, and the other half maybe not so much. And I know there's a lot of other salary cap casualty candidates. I try to focus on the guys that are really most relevant to most NFL fans. Let me know what you think. Did I miss any guys that in your mind are definitely cap casualties? Hit me up in the comments. Hit me up on Twitter as well. Guys, be sure to subscribe to my channel. All sorts of NFL videos here on my channel 7 days a week. It's completely free to subscribe. Have a great day.